Level 1. Client Service Associate and KYC Clerk. You enter the tight back office zone behind the glass partition with your junior employee bank badge pressed flat. Behind the glass partition, you place the account opening folder in front of the onboarding checklist. You open the KYC questionnaire with yellow stickers and match every flagged box to the onboarding checklist. At the night printer corner, you collect the stack of client questionnaires from the printer tray. You sort the client questionnaires by account opening folder before the printer warms for the next batch. With the KYC questionnaire open, you trace the beneficiary line beside the yellow sticker. You carry the account opening folder into the small meeting room for document signing. In the small meeting room, you set the beneficiary designation form before the client. You hold the client passport in the protective file beside the beneficiary designation form. The client pauses over the signature line while you keep the red "Missing Signature" stamp ready. You press the red "Missing Signature" stamp beside the blank signature field. You replace the beneficiary designation form inside the account opening folder. In the bank corridor by the elevator, you wait for the senior RM with the account opening folder. You hold the folder at chest height when the senior RM steps from the elevator. The senior RM checks the top page, while you keep the client passport in the protective file visible. You hand the meeting packs to the senior RM without opening the private pages. At the operations window for wire instructions, you unfold the printed wire instruction. You compare the printed wire instruction to the envelope with client instructions. With the envelope still closed at the edge, you read the client name through the allowed opening. You keep the printed wire instructions separate from the KYC questionnaire. At the client file archive, you slide the account opening folder between boxes and folders. You pull the account opening folder back because the AML check status remains unresolved. In the scan zone, you place the client passport in the protective file on the document scanner. You lower the scanner cover over the client passport in the protective file. On the AML check status screen, you read "Pending Review" beside the client name. You return to the scanner with the KYC questionnaire and yellow stickers. At the scan zone, you run the updated client documents through quality control. You mark the onboarding checklist beside the scanned passport line. With the onboarding checklist in your hand, you understand how large wealth becomes a paper route. You carry the account opening folder back into the client file archive. You leave the account opening folder between boxes and folders in the client file archive. Level 2. Portfolio Reporting Analyst and Performance Explainer. You arrive at the analytical desk with 2 monitors and open charts. At the analytical desk, you spread the printed performance report below the 2 monitors. You read -7% on the printed performance report beside the red portfolio line. On the graph of portfolio versus benchmark, you trace the client portfolio below the benchmark. You open the asset allocation table beside the calculator of returns. With the calculator of returns, you check the bond fund weight against the asset allocation table. You move the performance attribution slide into the meeting pack preparation room. Inside the meeting pack preparation room, you set the corrected slides before the senior RM. The senior RM marks the report margins, while you hold the performance report open. You point the laser pointer at the performance attribution slide. On the slide, you separate market movement from portfolio decision. You place the chart of the bond fund drawdown behind the corrected slides. In the empty meeting room after the senior RM presentation, you collect the corrected slide stack. You read the senior RM margin notes beside the client question about benchmark. With the printed Sharpe ratio, you check whether the explanation sounds like analysis or excuse. You carry the performance report into the corridor by the coffee machine. At the coffee machine corridor, you hold the report while the senior RM discusses the drawdown. You keep the red cells from the Excel file in memory as the conversation tightens. In the evening open space, you return to the single-lit Bloomberg screen. You open the Excel file with red cells beside the Bloomberg screen. On the Excel file with red cells, you trace the worst contribution line. You compare the client portfolio to the Yacht Friend Fund chart. With the Yacht Friend Fund chart open, you measure envy against benchmark language. You move into the small internal room to rehearse the loss explanation. In the small internal room, you aim the laser pointer at the bond fund drawdown diagram. You repeat the drawdown explanation until the red line becomes a client sentence. At the screen wall with indices and returns, you read the market lines beside portfolio returns. You compare the index return to the client portfolio return on the screen wall. With the performance report still open, you understand numbers need translation before clients hear them. You return the laser pointer to the corrected slide stack. You leave the printed performance report beneath the two monitors at the analytical desk. Level 3. Associate Advisor and Risk Profile Interrogator. You enter the small client meeting room with water and notebooks. In the small client meeting room, you open the Risk Tolerance Questionnaire before the client. You place the Investment Objectives Questionnaire beside the Liquidity Needs sheet. The client reaches for the water glass, while you point to the risk tolerance scale. You watch the client pen hover above the aggressive option. On the screen, you read, "How would you react to a 20% drawdown?" You keep the screen question visible while the client studies the aggressive option. Inside the office for the first discovery meeting, you write the client answer in handwritten senior advisor notes. You place the card Long-Term Investor beside the risk tolerance questionnaire. With the card Long-Term Investor visible, you ask about the client time horizon diagram. You move to the quiet hall of the private banking floor before the meeting. In the quiet hall, you review the time horizon diagram against the liquidity needs sheet. You carry the folder with tax restrictions against the investment objectives questionnaire. On the large video call screen, you open the debts and liabilities table for the client. You read the debts and liabilities table while the client describes long-term patience. The client pauses before the 20% drawdown question, and you mark the pause in handwritten notes. You ask about family obligations through the notes on family obligations. In the side room, you hold the risk tolerance questionnaire while the senior advisor reviews the answers. The senior advisor points to the aggressive option while you underline the client pause. You compare the investment objectives questionnaire with the liquidity needs sheet. At the private banking lounge, you set the water glass within reach of the client. You ask the uncomfortable question while the client touches the water glass. With the water glass in view, you mark the reaction beside family obligations. You guide the client back to the liquidity needs sheet. On the liquidity needs sheet, you circle the line requiring quick access to cash. In the narrow meeting room after the session, you compare client words with the questionnaire. You place the long-term investor card beside the anxious handwritten note. With the questionnaire open, you understand declared courage breaks before actual pain. You close the folder with tax restrictions in front of the senior advisor. You leave the risk tolerance questionnaire in the center of the narrow meeting room. Level 4. Junior Relationship Manager and AUM Hunter. You enter the entrepreneur breakfast in the expensive, noisy restaurant. At the restaurant entrance, you straighten the networking breakfast badge on your jacket. You open the metal business card case beside the referral contact list. With the invitation card to the closed breakfast, you approach the entrepreneur table. You place one business card beside the unfinished coffee after the entrepreneur declines a meeting. The entrepreneur gives a polite smile while you write the name in the referral contact list. You carry the referral contact list into the golf club lobby by the registration desk. At the registration desk, you read the client card with estimated net worth. You trace $50 million on the client card beside the estimated net worth line. With the client card lowered below your badge, you wait outside someone else's trust. You enter the tax lawyer's reception area with the presentation envelope for the M&A banker. In the tax lawyer's reception area, you hold the referral contact list open. The tax advisor scans the referral contact list while you keep the presentation envelope ready. You open the notebook with lawyer and CPA names beside the client card. After the failed meeting, you step into the business center elevator. Inside the elevator, you read, "Let's reconnect next quarter," on your phone. You close the phone screen before the empty calendar slot after the canceled meeting. With the empty calendar slot visible, you feel the AUM target pressing harder than analysis. You enter the cocktail networking event with badges and glasses. At the cocktail networking event, you keep the glass below the networking breakfast badge. You exchange a business card from the metal case for a name in the notebook. The referral contact list stays open while you scan for the right attorney introduction. You move into the conference room for business owners after the panel discussion. In the conference room, you open the AUM target table beside the presentation envelope. You compare the empty pipeline line to the AUM target table. With the AUM target table open, you understand trust arrives through social proof before competence. You leave the conference room with the presentation envelope still sealed. On the Elite Club parking lot, you place the referral contact list against the steering wheel. You make the follow-up call with the phone pressed to your ear. The voicemail records your name while you watch the empty calendar slot. You put the phone beside the invitation card to the closed breakfast. You leave the metal business card case on the seat in the Elite Club parking lot. Level 5. Product Shelf Survivor and Conflict Manager. You enter the internal product committee room with the internal approval memo. In the product committee room, you open the structured note term sheet. You read "Preferred" on the product card marked "Preferred." With the fees and expenses table open, you write "High Commission" in your private notes. You compare the structured note term sheet to the suitability questionnaire. On the lockup period graph, you trace the client's money beyond the client's patience. You enter the meeting room with the structured note payoff scenario on the screen. In the meeting room, you open the compliance checklist beside the payoff scenario. You follow the lower payoff branch with the laser pointer. With the disclosure form on conflict of interest, you pause before the informed consent line. You place the fees and expenses table beside the disclosure form. Inside the compliance officer's office, you hold the best interest documentation open. The compliance officer checks the disclosure form while you point to fees and expenses. You add the suitability questionnaire behind the internal approval memo. With the internal approval memo open, you mark the best interest documentation line. You enter the closed presentation for the new private credit fund. At the closed presentation, you hold the private credit fund presentation on your knees. The product committee highlights the product card marked "Preferred" while you return to fees and expenses. You read the lockup period graph before touching the informed consent pen. In the quiet corridor after the fee conversation, you fold the private note with "High Commission." You understand the danger can come wrapped as exclusivity and approved language. You enter the internal training room for the new product line. In the training room, you check the compliance checklist against the disclosure form. You mark the informed consent step without lifting the pen toward the client. You enter the meeting room where the client asks for something unavailable to ordinary people. In the client meeting room, you place the informed consent pen beside the disclosure form. The client reaches toward the pen while you turn the fees and expenses table toward the client. You choose the pause over the easy sale. With the structured note term sheet open, you accept the distance between legal and right. You keep the informed consent pen beside the unsigned disclosure form. You leave the structured note term sheet open on the lockup period graph. Level 6. Crisis Call Advisor and Panic Absorber. You enter the darkened office during the market drawdown with the headset for endless calls. In the darkened office, you read the missed call queue on your phone. You open the client call priority list beside the screen with the falling index. On the screen, you track the falling index below the morning note. You place the chart of drawdown beside the rebalance proposal. With the chart of drawdown open, you read the note, "Client wants to liquidate everything." You carry the headset into the war room with several news screens. In the war room, you keep the rebalance proposal in front of the news screens. You compare the margin call notification with the cash runway sheet. The client calls again while you hold the cash runway sheet near the phone. You answer the call from your car at the roadside. Inside the car, you lay the cash runway sheet on the passenger seat. You read the draft letter, "Do not sell into panic," before speaking. With the phone at your ear, you guide the client back to cash runway. You join the video call from the client's home office on the screen. On the video call, you show the tax loss harvesting opportunities graph. The client watches the screen while you point to the rebalance proposal. You explain liquidity through the cash runway sheet, not through the falling index. At the empty office kitchen at 3 o'clock at night, you grip the stress ball. You set the stress ball beside the phone with the missed call queue. With the phone open, you select the next name from the call priority list. You step into the bank stairwell for 1 minute with the headset hanging low. In the stairwell, you press the phone against your chest. You understand the client cannot hold the portfolio unless you hold the panic first. You enter the meeting room with the speakerphone and silent team. In the speakerphone room, you place the margin call notification beside the rebalance proposal. You read, "Client wants to liquidate everything," beside the speakerphone. The client demands a full sale, while you keep the rebalance proposal centered. You choose the next call from the client call priority list. With the draft letter open, you keep the words, "Do not sell into panic," visible. You leave the draft letter, "Do not sell into panic," beside the phone in the darkened office. Level 7. Senior Relationship Manager and Household Politician. You enter the private bank family meeting room with the estate planning binder. In the family meeting room, you open the family tree diagram before the family. You place the list of heirs with shares beside the trust document. The father studies the family tree while you keep the seating arrangement cards aligned. You turn the estate planning binder toward the father without moving the trust document. The second wife watches the letter from the second wife's attorney while you hold the binder open. You place the family conflict topic list inside your hidden notebook. In the country house living room, you set the family tree diagram near the foundation program. You open the liquidity event folder after the business sale for the father. With the liquidity event folder visible, you ask the family to look at ownership before spending. You enter the family business office with the founder's portrait on the wall. Inside the family business office, you unfold the family business ownership structure documents. You compare the ownership structure documents to the list of heirs with shares. With the founder's portrait in view, you understand legacy sits beside control. You move into the boardroom with the lawyer, CFO, and heirs. In the boardroom, you place the estate planning binder between the trust document and ownership structure. You guide the heirs back to the plan of education for heirs. The heir resists the plan while you keep the trust document open. You mark one family conflict topic in the hidden notebook. At the philanthropic dinner, you hold the philanthropic foundation program beside the seating arrangement cards. You read the foundation program while the family performs unity across the room. With the program in your hand, you note which heirs avoid which seats. You enter the separate room to speak with an heir without parents. In the separate room, you open the plan of education for heirs. The heir looks at the plan, while you keep the family tree diagram closed. You place the plan of education for heirs beside the family constitution conversation. In the mansion corridor after the tense family meeting, you hold the estate planning binder tight. You understand through the family tree diagram that capital has become family politics. You tuck the hidden notebook against the estate planning binder. You leave the estate planning binder on the private bank family meeting room surface. Level 8. Liquidity Architect and Pre-Mortem Strategist. You enter the closed strategy session with lawyers and trustees. At the strategy session, you open the pre-mortem checklist before the trustees. You place the scenario, founder death, market closure, lawsuit, beside the liquidity bucket diagram. The trustees review trustee roles while you point to the emergency succession plan envelope. You read the capital calls schedule on the capital calls graph. With the graph open, You compare capital calls against the tax payment calendar. You enter the office with the scenario board marked "What If?" Inside the "What If" office, you pin the liquidity bucket diagram to the board. You mark founder death beside market closure on the scenario "Founder death, market closure, lawsuit." With the concentration risk table, you compare one holding against the illiquid assets list. You move to the private bank lending desk with the credit agreement. At the lending desk, you open the credit agreement to the covenant terms. The banker reviews covenant terms while you keep the capital calls graph visible. You compare the covenant terms with the tax payment calendar. With the credit agreement still open, you mark where lending terms could tighten. You enter the archive of property ownership documents. Inside the archive, you open the ownership structure map. You place the illiquid assets list beneath the ownership structure map. With the illiquid assets list open, you understand the family can break before the market breaks. You enter the quiet family office room with the family asset map. In the quiet family office room, you rebuild the liquidity bucket diagram from the asset map. You place the decision protocol beside the liquidity bucket diagram. With the decision protocol open, you assign choices before fear assigns choices. You enter the meeting room with the CPA before the large tax deadline. In the CPA meeting room, you open the tax payment calendar. The CPA checks the tax payment calendar while you hold the capital calls graph beside the calendar. You compare tax payments with capital calls across the 2 pages. You enter the crisis planning room without extra people and phones. In the crisis planning room, you set the emergency succession plan envelope beside trustee roles. You place the family decision protocol in front of the ownership structure map. With the decision protocol open, you search for the first place the system can fail. You close the emergency succession plan envelope before the trustees. You leave the liquidity bucket diagram on the crisis planning room surface. Level 9. Family Risk Governor and Trusted No-Sayer. You enter the closed family room without a presentation screen. In the closed family room, you place the unsigned deal memo before the family. You open the document with the large label "Illiquid" and 10-year lockup. On the document, you read 10-year lockup beside the proposed deal. The client reaches for the pen, while you move the pen aside instead of signing. You place the panic sale scenario printout beside the unsigned deal memo. With the unsigned deal memo open, you refuse the idea of the month. You enter the mansion library to tell the client no. Inside the mansion library, you hold the hard warning letter to the client. You say no with the hard warning letter still in your hand. The client pushes for access, while you keep the illiquid and 10-year lockup document open. You enter the patriarch's office behind the massive desk. Before the massive desk, you open the estate plan update folder. You place the family constitution beside the estate plan update folder. With the estate plan update folder open, you require the family to face succession. You enter the private meeting with heirs without parents. In the private meeting, you open the list of required financial education sessions for heirs. The heirs look at the session list while you keep the family constitution open. You close the laptop after the sentence nobody wanted to hear. With the closed laptop in front of you, you keep the education sessions. List visible. You enter the empty hall after the difficult family decision. In the empty hall, you hold the refusal letter to the bank over the disputed product. You place the refusal of the idea of the month beside the bank letter. With the refusal letter open, you accept being useful without being liked. You enter the bank office after the conflict with the product team. Inside the bank office, you place the refusal letter to the bank on the office surface. The product team asks for reconsideration, while you keep the unsigned deal memo closed. You carry the estate plan update folder out of the bank office. In the quiet corridor, you stand alone after refusing the client. You pass the empty chair at the table after the angry client leaves. With the family constitution against your chest, you understand truth costs more than silence. You return to the closed family room without a presentation screen. You leave the unsigned deal memo on the surface of the closed family room.